All right, hey everybody. Let's start a new session there. All right, if you could just let me know if the audio is coming through, then we can get started. Just toss something in the live chat there. Okay, cool. Looks like everybody can hear me. So let's get started. All right, today we're gonna make a helicopter, and I grabbed a couple of reference images that I'm gonna drop in here. I didn't put them in the folder, so it's just kind of messy right now. I gotta search for them. All right, here's one. And I guess that's the only image I grabbed. Yeah. Maybe it's in cloud reference actually. Yeah, I made a little hand sketch here, drag that out, and there might be one other image, probably not. Yeah, okay, just two images. So, first thing I'm gonna do is blow these up, expand them like that, hold them, and press the blue menu button to anchor them to the scene. Now for some reason that readjusts the size. I don't know if that's a bug or not, but it's all right. We could just rescale them like this. And yeah, we could start to sketch this. So I'm gonna take this and snap this to the mirror plane and then set up my environment a bit. So I'm gonna press the blue menu button, go to settings, sketching aid, and I already have world axes on. I'm just gonna turn on the mirror plane right there, and I'm gonna leave off vertical lock for now and stage floor. Those are some things that I'll probably add in a little bit. Yeah, so now I have my sketching ready with the ink tool, and I can just start sketching over top of this, but I want to drop in a mannequin first so that I know I'm doing this at 1:1 scale. So I'll click prefab, grab one of the mannequins here, drop them into the blue box to import them at 1:1 scale, and right now he's facing the other direction, so I'll just click the arrow 1, 2 times and import like that. All right, so now I have my mannequin in the space at 1:1 scale, and I'm just gonna pull him out like that, and let's position the body a little bit. So I'll flick the joystick so that I get the blue points, and then back to green for the arms, and position this guy in a, I guess something that would be like the pilot's position. And if you grab both of these wrist points, it's kind of nice. You can move the arms together, kind of make it more natural for holding like a steering wheel or a control set. All right. And now let's try and sort things out a little bit and use layers. So blue button, layers, I can grab the border of that and move that panel and like actually take it off of my hand and place it in the environment. And so let's create a few layers here. Let's make the first one refs, the next one guy, and the next one sketch. And let's drop the guy on that layer there. References will already be there because that was our first layer. And then let's make sure that the sketch layer is active. So click in the empty space right there, have the magnifying glass on, and once that's there, you know you're good to go. So let's lock the references, turn them down about a little less than halfway so that we can see through them. And then let's shift the pilot back a bit. I'm going to use Smart Move for that. And actually, I'm going to go back to my references, unlock that, and scale this up a bit so that it actually fits a pilot. Okay. Shift the guy up. And maybe back a little bit as well. And actually, let's move him out in Z and duplicate him so that we have a pilot and a passenger. And you know what, just for fun, let's toss someone in the center back seat like that. All right. And we can shift him up a little bit. And actually, let's group them together. So to group things, grab multiple objects, hold them, and press the purple button. All right, so let's lock the guys, lock the reference images, and we are on our sketch layer. So now we can start sketching. And at first, let's just do, you know, some loose lines like this. Now it might be best to do a side view and actually sketch on a flat plane, but we'll give it a go like this first. See what we come up with. Okay, and don't forget you can grab these lines, put them into edit mode, or put multiple lines into edit mode by grabbing multiple pieces and long holding the blue button. And that's really useful because I have a couple of sketch lines here and I want to shift them all out in Z together. All right, that's looking good so far. It's giving me an idea of proportion. And yeah. Okay, I'm gonna start to peel off from the sketch I have here and just start sketching some legs. Can group those sketch lines together. Again, same way, grab multiple things, purple button. And let's take this A pillar here and bring that into like this single leg right here for some landing gear. I don't know, maybe that looks okay or kind of bad. We'll leave it for now, see what we want to do with it. All right, I'll indicate some wheels here. And right now, because we're dealing with wheels, I think I want a floor to start sketching in reference to. So settings, can make a floor very easily by turning on stage floor. There's square and circle. I'll leave that on circle. And let's shift things up a little bit like that. And I think at this point, we can get rid of the sketch lines, or the sketches as reference. So I'm actually gonna just drop those right now. Let's just, let's riff on what we have. And one last time, let's shift the guys up a little bit. Okay, cool. So let's just run with our sketch now. And we're still in the sketching phase, so any idea works. We'll get into tightening things up in a little bit. Oh, also, if anybody has any ideas, toss them in the chat. I'll check them out and see if we can incorporate some of them. I know there's probably a good chance that we have some aviation nuts out there, so if I'm doing something that really doesn't make sense aerodynamically, let me know. Okay, and we could definitely benefit from a side view now. So let's press the purple menu button. We already have the ink tool selected. Let's click it twice and turn on planar here. So I'll switch that to the right, close the menu, and then I got the planar, exactly what I want, but it's on the floor. And I want it here on the mirror plane or the center line. So you move this plane around by holding in your pointer finger trigger. When you let go, you'll place it somewhere, just like this. To lock it to an axis, half hold, and make sure the face of the controller, so the very front of it there, is parallel to the axes that you want to snap to. And whenever you're locked into that axis, again, half holding the trigger, face parallel, the center here will highlight in the same color. And now it's locked, but I don't have it on the mirror plane, and so I want to, even though it's locked, and so I want to move it close to the mirror plane, and you'll see it just kind of magnetically attaches there. And so now make the sketch line, look, see if it's separated. Nope, we're attached to the mirror plane. Good to go. Let's come in here and keep sketching. And center line is going to be tough to do a perfect sketch of, so I'm just going to do a single line like this and put it into edit mode. It's not really refined, which is fine, but it's just refined enough to give us a good center line. Okay, and then let's also get an idea of what this is going to do in section. So I can take that same plane, turn it the other way, snap it, and start sketching a section line. Let's do it over here as well. Just make one long one, put that into edit mode. All right, I think that looks pretty cool right now. It's got good proportion. And yeah, let's just indicate the propellers here. So back to ink tool, turn planar off, turn symmetry up to, let's make it a 5 propeller. I don't know if that's good or not. And of course this is going to revolve around an axis. So same thing. Pointer finger on the left-hand controller. If you want to lock it, half hold it. And we can just make a simple line like that. It's going to repeat more than 6 times because we have it on mirror. So if I grab it and move it off the mirror, you can see it's 2 objects. That's all right. Grab it, put it into edit mode, and turn off the mirror right there. All right, let's clean up that line a bit, like this. It has really big propellers. Great, yeah, really liking the proportion here. If you ever want to check out what you did at scale and do this turntable effect, it's a little confusing because I have polar symmetry on, so let's turn that off. All you need to do is hold in the side button here, the same trigger that you would use to shift around your environment, and while you're holding it, press the pointer finger trigger. All of this is on the left hand. And while you're holding both of those in, that will enable this turntable feature. And so now all you have to do is twist your wrist around like this. It's a little weird at first to like twist your wrist for the rotation of the environment, but it works pretty well. And yeah, now you can evaluate what you have there at scale and really get an idea of what the proportions are going to be for something large scale like a helicopter. Okay, so one thing before we move forward that I kind of want to evaluate here is the interior. Does this make sense to have the passengers sit, sitting like this? And it might not. So let's lock the sketch, click the guy layer there and unlock it, and ungroup these guys. So I'm going to delete those two. Let's make a center pilot right here. Place them like this. And then duplicate back here, and we can move the passengers in the back. So first, let's just see if there's enough room for 2. All right, it's going to be kind of a tight fit, but I think we could fit 2 passengers back there. You know what? Let's just leave it at 2 people staggered like this, and that looks good. Okay, so let's get into some surfacing. Before we do surfacing, I'll just grab the layer panel here. It would probably be good to create a clean line sketch of this. Really hone in the proportions and then use those curves to do some surfacing. We won't do this for everything, but let's see what we can accomplish in a short period of time. So click this layer, name it, clean line. There we go, good. Active, and unlock our, or actually lock our sketch lines, turn down the visibility on them a bit. And then lock our guy layer as well, turn that down to halfway. So here's something kind of interesting is these sketch lines right now look really bold and pronounced. And that's because I have Toon Shader on. So if I make the line bigger, you can see there I have Toon Shader on. This is what it looks like when you don't have Toon Shader on. And so Toon Shader gives you like this nice heavy black line around your geometry. So it could be sketch lines, it could be, you know, surface or something like that. It's really nice, except for when you have your stroke really small like this for nice refined sketch lines. It can kind of create a bit of an illusion here. So these, for instance, if I were to grab these sketch lines, let's unlock them, grab them, hold them, and change the material to something like basic material, they're so skinny they're basically invisible. So just be kind of aware of that sometimes. Toon Shader is awesome, but if you're sketching with really skinny lines, it can kind of fake you out like this. So in this case, I think we'll make them a really dark color, and yeah, probably just leave it on one of these regular materials and sketch over top of it. That's like ghosted out enough for me. All right, let's lock that again. Again, clean line layer. Delete that, and then come down here to the stroke tool, double click it so we get this panel here. And then once we have this panel, let me just grab it, pull it out in the space here. We have it on mixed input right now, which is very basic, like this. Let's change it to point mode. So now each time we click the pointer finger trigger, we get a nice edit point that gets dropped in, and we can close off this line, pressing the pointer finger on the opposite controller, so the left-hand controller. All right, yeah, let's run with that. And first, it's always best to start with a side view. So stroke tool, click it twice, edit panel, turn on planar, same thing as we did for the sketch tool here. Yeah, so let's start. Again, you're never, well, at least I'm never going to get it perfect sketching the line the first time. So just get something in the space, put that into edit mode, just a little further. All right. Click in the side view for the bottom. Okay, that's good enough for us to work with. So instead of sketching this theoretical line right here, let me turn off planar. Instead of sketching this line right here and trying to match it up nicely with the side view, we already have a really good true side views line right here. So we should just take advantage of that and duplicate it out like this. All right, and once we've duplicated it out, we can put it into edit mode because obviously we need to move it in a little bit on the Z axis here so that it has that taper that we have in our sketch below. But you'll notice if I grab this edit point, I try to shift it into Z, it's not gonna work, right? And it's because it was designed, or this line was created with planar on, and you know, it's still respecting the fact that it's sketched on a 2D plane. So what we wanna do is take a look at our edit panel here and turn off planar for this individual line. And we know that we're doing that because we have this line in edit mode, and it had planar on, and then we toggled it off like that. So now that we've toggled planar off, we can actually shift these lines in all axes again. Okay, that's looking pretty good. And let's duplicate this line out as well, just to get us some width here for the tail. And now we're ready to surface. I think this is enough for us to do some surfacing off of. Usually I spend a lot of time making, you know, clean lines that we can use, and then do a bunch of, you know, complex surfacing off of that. In this video, let's just do some like creative surfacing, some explorative stuff. So let's click the surface tool twice here. And of course, this is what it looks like when it's on default, right? We're set to simplified mode. I don't use simplified mode. It's not very adjustable once you put it into edit mode. So I would highly suggest just switching that over to NURB surfaces or sub D surfaces. They're really flexible and you know, fun to use as well. So let's just take this, turn it all the way to sub D, grab the initial tension here, drop that down flat, and then because we have these nice curves that we're going to use, bridge curves right there. And now we can close this menu and start to surface over top of these lines. But before that, we want to save ourselves some work. So create a new layer, surface, great. Don't lock the curve or the clean line curves because we're going to use them to create surfaces with, but make sure your surface layer is active. And so now all the surfacing geometry is going to end up there. All right, let's change our color and start dropping in some surfaces. I'm not going to take the surfaces all the way to the edge of the lines. If you do that, there's a high, you know, probability that you're going to get a lot of incorrect surfacing data, right? So let's take a look at this. Like, this is pretty well spaced out. We have like a nice, you know, nice columns of data, right? And it looks pretty good and easy to work with, right? But let's delete that surface and do that. So drag it all the way to the ends. Actually, in this case, it works out pretty well, but sometimes you'll get some messy geometry and it will shift points to one side of a line more than the other. And it just doesn't really look that great. In this case, it turned out all right, but just a little tip there. Okay, let's drop in a surface there. Let's drop in one up here. And actually, I'm not going to drop in a surface up there because we're going to duplicate over something else to make that surface, but we'll drop something in over here. And then for the tail, this is kind of like a large span of curves to create a surface between. So if you didn't want to do, you know, that, you could just populate a surface very quickly by going to the surface menu here, turn on full curve, and then right there, one click, entire surface populated. And I'm going to turn off full curve for down here. Okay. And this is enough for us to start making the body from, I think. Yeah, okay. So let's go to our sketch, turn that all the way down. We don't need to look at that. Let's turn down clean line, but lock it, and start messing around with these surfaces now. So if you just put a surface, a sub D surface into edit mode, you can grab faces, edges, and edit points. But if you want to move an entire row, I'm also going to turn off the stage floor. There we go. But if we want to move an entire row of edit points, it's kind of impossible to do that. You could expand the grab sphere like this, but maybe you're grabbing, more points than you want to, that's fine. Take a look at your edit menu here on your left-hand controller and turn on Autoselect loops. And so that's going to let us select an entire row like that. You can kind of see that it's all selected. Grab it, press the pointer finger trigger to duplicate, and drag that over to the center line like that. Okay, so now that we've done that, we have a complete shape, but it looks really small because we have a minimal amount of data right now. So we only have 3 columns here of 3 edge loops, I guess you could say, like going along this direction. And I have smoothing on, so if I turn off smoothing, you'll see, we're touching the sketch lines that we originally had, right? But if I turn smoothing on, because we have such a little amount of data, the shape shrinks, basically. So what we're going to do here is click in. That was probably a terrible description of what was going on. But what we can do is drop in new edge loops like this and start to shape this. And you'll see it, the more we add in closer to this original edge loop, the tighter the radius gets and the closer it gets to that sketch line that we had. All right, and then I'm going to make some adjustments here. I'm going to shift up the center line so we have some crown on the surface, and then drop in another edge loop right there. And then what I'm noticing here, if we just take a look at the side view, we have all these columns of data. It's probably too much. We don't need that much data. So I'm just going to turn on auto edge loops here and select a column and delete it and start to thin out the amount of data that I have. Like this. We'll just go every other one at first. See what that looks like. Yeah, now these surfaces look a lot cleaner, and we have, less edit points to mess around with, which is good, because that's just added complexity. Okay, so we're going to worry about that in a little bit. That's a decent shape right now. Now let's come in and adjust this surface. So again, a lot of data. I know it seems kind of manual, but I'm going to come in here and delete almost every other point. Maybe I'll do that even more. Yeah, all right, that looks good. So we just have three spans right there. Auto select edge loops, duplicate, drag over to the center line. Of course, we get tangency when we connect sub-D surfaces across the center line there. And yeah, that shape's looking pretty good. But what I'm noticing is I can't do the same thing on this other side here because I already have a surface in. So there's multiple things you can do here. We could take this surface, put it into edit mode, and just delete the points that are closest to the top, and then, do the same trick over here. And that's probably good because it's going to be cleaner. And now we can take this shape and connect it to this surface. So we just color these different so that we can see that they are 2 different surfaces. I'll put this one into edit mode and connect it across the mirror plane. And basically what I want to do now is take this purple shape and merge it with this dark orange shape. So again, sub-D pieces of geometry, and we can do that by pressing this hammer and brush icon menu. And so these editing tools are only used for sub-D. So you'll only see these if you have a sub-D piece of geometry in edit mode. And so we have the smooth tool, edge cut tool. This is the normal loop cut tool. This is kind of like the default thing when you have something in a piece of sub-D in edit mode. Crease tool, and then the merge tool. And so we want the merge tool. We'll hover over it, let go of the button, and that makes the actual selection. And then point at any of the shapes that we want to merge together. So let's just select this one right now. We'll merge the other ones later on. Okay, so one thing you'll notice is as soon as you merge a shape, the shape that you selected to merge will lose its tangency. It's no longer connected to the mirror plane. So that's kind of annoying, but it's all right because we could just drag it over like this and reconnect it. So it's not that big of a deal. And now what we can do is we have these 2 shapes. They're connected. We can see both the edit points for them, but they're not physically connected yet. So it's just a game of connect the dots, drag that edit point over to that one, this one over to that one, and then you see that it just sort of blends those shapes together. So that looks good. Let's grab this shape down here, do some cleanup. All right, I'm just gonna go through and, oof. Okay, it'd probably be best if I just connected this across the mirror plane first. So there we go, now it's connected across the mirror plane. And we can come in here, clean up this data. So there's a lot of data that we don't need here. All right, let's merge it together. Merge these two shapes. And if this is too confusing when the surfaces are in smooth mode, just come over here to subdivision, turn off subdivision, and now you can see, you know, it in this low poly form, and you can click in new edge loops and, you know, connect them together like this, and it makes it a little more understandable. Okay, so we got them connected. Let's turn on smoothing, see what that looks like. Nice. We have a nice thin tail here for the helicopter. And notice that it's not connected to the mirror plane again. Let's just shift it over. Good. All right, that's looking good. Let's click in another loop of edit points there. Shift it out in Z a little bit. And now we can connect this to the rest of the body. So same thing, merge tool, click, good, connect. And now grab these edges here, hold pointer finger trigger to duplicate it out. And yeah, that's how we duplicate out an edge. There we go. All right. Okay, so we have a row of edit points here and nothing up here. So what we want to do is either click in an entire new row and match them up like that, or just shift over to the next thing over here. I don't think we're going to do that though. I think we're just going to click in a new row because we have generally mismatched data here anyways, right? We have 2 rows here, 2 here, and then, you know, it's just not right. So we'll click in an entire row right here like that and shift it out so we have just a little bit of crown to that surface, and then connect those surfaces. Just give me a second here. I'm just going to pull down the blind. So you'll notice if you're using your headset and maybe the sun is shining into some of the sensors, it will kind of throw off the Guardian settings. So that's kind of what was happening, is some sun was blasting through the window there and I wasn't getting really good tracking. All right, there we go. Everything's connected together. Let's turn off our clean line and see what the shape looks like. So it looks okay right now, but we do have the material on toon material. So we probably want to turn these surfaces to reflective and see what some of these highlights look like. So I'll grab this, hold it, press the color wheel menu button, and we can select reflective here. And let's select like a blue. I kind of find it easy to see what surfaces are doing when they're turned that color. And all right. Yeah, now we can map some highlights. So this is looking actually pretty clean. The highlights are tracking well. The surfaces have some nice crown to them. Looks pretty good. We have to worry about what we're going to do here for the nose and how that's all going to shape out. But other than that, this looks pretty decent so far. And now that we have a good base of surfaces, the detail work is just going to be so much easier. So yeah, let's check out the comments. All right, silly question. Can you lock to the view of orthographic like a side view, top view? Okay, yeah, great. We can cover orthographic view. Nice turntable feature, okay. All right, sweet. Somebody wants machine guns. All right, so let's check out orthographic viewport. So one important thing to know about orthographic viewport is basically you need to have, so if this is your headset, right, there are some people that are using wireless headsets, that's like the Oculus Quest 2 or the original Oculus Quest. And then there are some people using like Rift S's, which basically, plug into your computer, right? So there's like a cable, you plug it into your computer, and then you can leverage the graphics card there. So if you have a headset that plugs into your computer, you will get orthographic viewports, and I'll show you that in a second. If you're on a standalone headset, you will need to buy an Oculus Link cable and then plug that into your headset and then use the graphics card on your laptop or your desktop to get not only these reflections, but the orthographic viewport. So what does the orthographic viewport look like? If you press the blue menu button here and go down to the second option up from the bottom, you have something called orthographic viewport. So you can grab this, pull it out into your scene like this. And what's nice about it is you can grab whatever views you want, leave them there in your scene, and it is auto updated. So I can sketch a line like this, and you can see that it auto updates. It kind of shows that there in the viewport. And then at the bottom right-hand side of each of these viewports here is a screenshot button. So you can take a screenshot while you're designing something, and basically that saves out as a PNG. So yeah, that's orthographic viewport. There is no way of taking your actual view in Gravity Sketch and making it a complete orthographic. And actually it would be kind of, I don't even know what that would look like, right? Because this object is in front of me, right? I'm experiencing this spatially. So if you did have it locked to orthographic view, it would be kind of like you're staring at a, yeah, I don't know what that would be like. It might be interesting. Okay, cool. So this is the base for the helicopter. Let's get back to it. Let's make this like an army kind of color and put it on toon material too, so we don't have those reflections. So let's just blast through some detail work, actually. I'm going to come up here to the top, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a separate part from the body. And all I want here is this line of edit points, and I want it to be exactly those line of edit points. So I'm going to turn on Autoselect Loop, grab them, duplicate them, and use Smart Move so that it's all the way up like this. So now here's what I'm going to do. Hopefully it doesn't cause any problems. I'm going to duplicate this shape up like this, and I'm going to delete some of these edit points. Basically, the entire body I'm going to delete here, and we're just going to use that one little section that I duplicated out. I know it seems kind of manual, but it's a way of ensuring that you're going to get the exact surface that you want. All right, cool. So now we have the surface. Great. Let's come down here and just going to delete the one that we duplicated out like that. And now we can drop this guy down like this and turn it a different color. So let's turn it like dark gray. And yeah, now we can actually use this surface here. And what we can do is, if we want it to connect right next to this edge here, we don't need to merge the two surfaces. We could just turn on this option here, snap. Now it's not going to connect the surfaces, but it will snap together those edit points like this. All right, so now that I have that little, lift at the top there, I can turn on Auto Select Loops. Let's turn off snap. We don't need that right now. Select this entire row, hold, press the pointer finger trigger to duplicate, and go left or right on the joystick here. And that's going to allow me to scale in and out like this. And so once I have that, I can start adding edge loops here. and tighten up the radius. All right, cool. And that's just kind of like a nice detail piece, and it's not a part of the main body. All right, so let's make the legs now here. And for that, I'm gonna wanna go to settings, turn on stage floor here, and let's make some wheels here. But I can't remember where the legs are, so I'm gonna turn on layers, just turn up the sketch enough so that I can see where those legs are. Okay, right there. And then we're going to use the Revolve tool. So purple button, click the Revolve tool. If you haven't used it before, it works around an axis. Same story as before. Pointer finger trigger all the way in. When you let go, you've selected a new place for that axis to exist. And then if you want to snap it to something like X, Y, or Z, half hold, rotate, and get yourself lined up like that with the axes. And it will color the same color whenever you're locked. There's a bit of a bug though happening right now where it's highlighting red, but I'm locked to Z. So I'm not sure why that is, but. All right, and you're never gonna make a perfect shape, or at least I won't. So put that into edit mode and do all of that fine work here, adjusting those edit points. There we go. All right, and that's kind of a big wheel, so I'm gonna grab all the edit points, shrink them in like this a bit, and then drop that down. So what I did there was actually just move the geometry off of its axes. So if I keep sketching like this, it's not lined up. So we want to realign the axes here. So to do that, it's pretty simple. Just take your grab sphere, don't press any buttons, take your grab sphere, highlight the geometry, and then half hold the pointer finger trigger on for the axes over here. And when you have that happen, those red arrows appear, and that is what we want to drag our axes over to, and it will just snap right there to it. And now I can start sketching. Let me make another color here, and I know that I'm attached to this. I'm relocked to that same axis there. So that's a quick trick way of realigning your axes. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's make some sort of a rim. And I like to color the different parts of the wheel, well, just make it a different color or a different material so you know what you're, which piece you're working on, right? All right, and so that's separate pieces. Now let's grab them, hold them, group them together, and make the leg here. So let's just place the axes like this, kind of close to what we want the leg to be. And let's make some shocks here. Rough shape, delete all the points, drag it close to, as close as you possibly can to the, what's it called, axes there. All right, cool. We have something that kind of represents a shock there, and we're just going to create some surfacing over top of that. So back to, well, not the surfacing tool, but back to primitive shape here. And with primitive shape, you can just drop it in like this and edit it, put it into edit mode, get these simple, you know, arrows to adjust it, and then convert it to a sub-D object. So that's what we're going to do here. Let's make it a lighter color. And we don't need to be perfect here. Let's just place it roughly like that. Get it to generally the shape we want, just, you know, roughly the size. And then once it's like that and in edit mode, we can look at our panel here and convert that to sub-D. And now we're basically just working with, you know, a piece of sub-D geometry. And we can turn on subdivision levels and delete the caps and add a bunch of detail in like this. So let's do that. All right, keep clicking in some edge loops here. And we can even duplicate out an entire surface of edge loops like that. That doesn't look good, so we're not going to do it. Sorry if a lot of this is like zooming in. It's just kind of the nature of, you know, how I work. Basically just zooming in a lot and zooming out. It helps to get very detailed, but sometimes it's not the best for viewing. Okay, that's good enough for now. That kind of is like a stand-in piece. Let's see if we have any questions here. Let me turn down the sketch layer, get a good idea of what we're working with. All right. Copy and paste feature. Yeah, copy and paste. So you can duplicate objects. It kind of takes the place of copy and paste. But if you want to type in a little more detail what you mean, I'm kind of interested to know what you mean as far as copy and paste goes. Okay, so let's start, you know, blasting in some detail. We're going to take the Revolve tool, lock this to the y-axis here, and just start making some shapes. I think that's probably one of my favorite parts about Gravity sketches. Details, at least for me, typically were pretty difficult in other 3D programs. And now it's just really easy to like click in some edit points and some shapes, and before you know it, you have a crap load of detail, and it all looks pretty good when you stand back and do a render. Okay, let's add some more edit points here. And I like to keep things in this uniform toon shader at first, at least. For me, it just makes it easier to see what's going on. And if you're just getting started with Gravity Sketch, I highly suggest that you at least try Smart Move as a feature. Basically, that's what I'm doing to move along X, Y, and Z precisely. And I'm moving geometry along X, Y, and Z, but I'm also moving edit points, right? So I can take an object, put it into edit mode, and shift that along X, Y, and Z pretty precisely. And it just makes life a lot easier, especially in, in an open world like this where, points are moving around in free space. All right, so let's add the blades here. So, trying to think of the best way to do the blades. So the easiest way, but you wouldn't get a whole lot of detail, would be to select the volume tool, go to polar symmetry here, and slide that up to 6. Snap to the same axes that we created all this other revolve geometry on, just like that. And then just sketch out a shape like that, and it would kind of take the place of a blade. And it looks decent, but it's kind of those small details that will really add a lot of realism in a render. And with this tool, you aren't able to have like a nice curve in the blade, right? It's kind of like it's always going to have like a straight line between it with the surfacing, so we would have a dip like that, and that just kind of looks goofy. So what I'm going to do here is actually just give enough indication. So we're going to use the stroke tool here. Slide that up to 6. Actually, we can just reuse the clean line that we have here, or the sketch line that we have. So I'll unlock sketch, grab this curve. It's all grouped together. Grab that curve and drop it onto my surface layer, and then lock and minimize my sketch again. We don't need anything else there. And now take this curve, put it into edit mode, and take a look at this graph here. So let me change this to a color so you can see what's going on. It was all the way down like that. The stroke shape was, all the way down. And now we can pick it up like this and have even thickness throughout this line. We can kind of see a cross section there. Or we can move it, this way or that way to get a flat line. So that looks pretty good. And then we can change the shape type down here from round to square. So now we're getting a little more detail. And then if we take our joystick on our right-hand controller, take a look at these edit points. So they're normal right now. If we flick this joystick to the right or left, we get something that allows us to adjust the normals for this piece of stroke geometry. And so now we can get, that little bit of curvature in the blade, and yeah, it looks a little more real. So now let's shift that up, make it the same color as the rest of the blade, and like that is enough enough detail for us to kind of believe that, this is a helicopter. Let's thin out the blades a little bit like this. Still looking a bit chunky. All right, I think that's good. Yep, and let's just get some more detail here without having to build it. So I want to duplicate out these revolve shapes that I made, and I kind of just want to stick them right there. So I'm going to group them, move them down like this, and drop them in back here. And that is probably so wrong and doesn't make sense at all, but we're gonna leave that detail there. If someone wants to drop something in the comments, I will seriously consider getting rid of those. All right, so what else are we gonna do? Let's take a look at the sketch again, turn that all the way up, and turn down the surfacing layer a bit, because I feel like the interior here is going to be what adds a lot of realism. I'm just trying to think if we actually want to go there and sketch out the windows and the interior. Before we do that, let's figure out everything else here. So turn surface back up. We already have a wheel, so let's duplicate it. We don't need to make more geometry. And shift it in like this. And that kind of looks cool. And then let's make an exterior frame here. So let's take our clean line, unlock that, and use some of the curves we have here. We can actually take them, drop them on the surface layer, and get rid of the clean line layer. And we're going to do the same thing, just use this as a piece of geometry. All right, that looks kind of interesting. Let's close off this front fascia here. All right, so let's duplicate that out. Duplicate it in one more time and close it off in the front. Now we have a quad here. Can close that off. And then do the same thing for the rest of the body. Okay, there we go. Yeah, we'll figure out what to do with that in a little bit. All right, let's see what we have in the comments here. I have a question about exporting to Unity. With reference materials, does it carry over? Oof. I'm not sure if that carries over. I know somebody actually just did a video. His name is Matt Whitby. Just did a video about exporting and taking things to Unity. I'm going to see if we can link it in the description after this video is over, and you can check that out there. Once you pin YouTube comments into the environment, would save you. Yeah, it definitely would save me time jumping back and forth. I don't know. Let me try and see if I can do that real quick. Virtual desktop. Okay. I don't know if I can actually pin this while I'm working in Gravity Sketch though, but I'll look into that for next time. All right, so let's keep adding some detail here. Oops. Okay, awesome. And yeah, now we can add some details here, some intakes even. So let's just make a single intake here. And actually, you know, same thing is going to happen here where I want to have, you know, some darker shape on the inside. And I'm going to need to use the same data. So just going to duplicate this body out again. Delete all this stuff away like this. Duplicate back that shape. And actually, that's kind of a cool shape. Maybe we use that as the entire intake. So now I can delete these edit points and connect this guy here. Turn on snap, get those points exactly where we want them, and there we go. Nice little intake. And actually, for a little more dimension, all this stuff kind of matters whenever you know, not here, but when you go to like something like Keyshot to render it, you can shift that out a little bit and just add a little bit of a chamfer there. And just that little bit of extra detail is going to matter because it's going to catch a highlight whenever you render it. So there we go. And I mean, it will generally just look like a separate component. All right, let's work on the tail a little bit here. Same thing, let's use Revolve. And actually, let's not use Revolve. Let's use a piece of sub D geometry here. So let's go to primitive shapes. And before we drop the primitive shape in, I want to make sure that it's exactly snapped to like the axes in the space. So I'm going to press the blue menu button, go to here to settings, and then up here in the subfolders, go to beta. And first off, enable the grid tool here, and then actually turn on grid here. And now what this is going to allow me to do is basically take a cylinder here, drop it in the space, and you can see that it's, you know, facing perfectly up, and now I can rotate it like that. And that's all I need grid for. It's just that little stage right there, so that when I adjust it, I know that it's perfect. Let's move it close to the center line, and then convert this guy to sub D. Now, the exterior of the cylinder looks good, the surrounding part, but the faces here, the top and bottom, are just a single span, all these connecting to a single point, and I don't want to be making data with that, so I'm going to delete those. Shift these across the mirror plane, like that. Okay. And we can turn smoothing on. And of course, merge these two shapes together now. So edit mode, merge together. And this is going to be kind of complex. So actually, I'm gonna go back and not merge those. Shift this out a bit like that. And choose what faces I want to actually connect to the body here. Okay, so now that I've selected those guys there, now we can merge. I'll delete these faces like that. And connect these points together. Okay, so we have a little bit of a problem here where we have a triangle. No worries, we'll just delete that. And because it's sub D data, it will compensate for it. So you can also turn volume tool to planar. So you click it, turn on planar like this, and it's pretty useful. You basically get to make, well, I have polar symmetry on. I'll turn that off. Basically get to make these quick flat shapes like this. And it's pretty easy to use. All right, just like that. Make a tail for this copter. Let's change it all so that it's the same material, same data, and turn off planar. Looks like the mirror plane disconnected again. Just give it a shift like that. There we go, connected across the mirror plane again. All is well. All right, and then, you know, we can take basically this opportunity to add some very, very easy data or detail in with the stroke tool, like this. Just do some cables here. And duplicate them down so that they actually look really neat and organized. And then, of course, make some imperfections. And let's connect these legs to the plane, to the helicopter. And because we're only doing a render, I'm not going to worry about perfect data here. I'm just going to start kind of photo bashing, but with 3D, so kit bashing. Stuff together. I just want to render at the end of the day, so that's what we're going to do. Okay, so I had some pretty funky openings here in the original sketch. So let's turn on the original sketch here and kind of phase off the surfaces a bit. So I had these kind of like, I guess some Virgin Galactic openings here. And I mean, you can do these in GS, but to be totally honest, I think it'd be so much easier to just make some curves in Alias afterwards and project those on and trim these surfaces. Now the good news is I can export this as IGS or .igis format and actually do that. I can take it to a program like Alias and you know, project, trim, and then actually use all these surfaces and this data here. So I think that's probably what I'm going to do for the openings here. It's just going to be a lot easier. But what I can do is make the curves in Gravity Sketch, and that will actually make doing this in Alias even easier. It will make it a 5-minute job once I export it. So that's what I'm going to do is create a new layer here. Let's do Alias curves, and then come in here, stroke tool, and just tighten up these, or not tighten them up, actually build them. Again, I'm going to do this loose first because there's going to be a lot of going back and forth. All right. Connect that one there. Let's make a shape there and a shape here. All right, great. So now surfaces all the way up, sketch all the way down, guys all the way down. Everything else is figured out. I'm going to lock the surfaces here so that I'm not making any mistakes and make these curves something bright that I can see on the surface. So let's start in the top here. For these ones, I'm going to loop them together like this. Grab the line, put it in edit mode, loop it. It's going to make it one continuous piece of geometry. Oh, getting a call. 1 second. So I'm just going to ignore that real quick and finish this up. So let's shift these curves around. Like this. And I'm actually not going to worry about how thick these curves look because you know, when we export them as IGIS, they're just going to come in as curves, right? They're not going to have all this data on top of them. All right, let's duplicate some of this stuff so we don't have to make new geometry. Like that. Let's loop this. yeah, and basically now I'm going to be able to take this, go to alias, project these curves, and then have some openings that I can work with. But I think that's it for today. We got a decent amount of detail here, and it's a pretty cool chopper. We can even let's unlock the surfaces again, duplicate out these legs, and use some of the components here. All right, yep, just like that. Volume tool turned to planar is really great for doing these kind of like brackets. And then you change the shape type to square stroke. Really easy to do that kind of stuff. And yeah, so there we go. There's our chopper, and let's change the material to something reflective like that blue. And yeah, looks pretty decent. So I think I am gonna, I know I said this last time, but I think I am gonna export this and try and do some renders, clean up the data a little bit, just because I really like the proportion of this thing. And yeah, just follow our Instagram if you want to see that, or if you want to see a whole bunch of other really incredible work from everybody else that's using Gravity Sketch. If you like this video, please do give it a like, subscribe if you want, and let a friend know about it. And yeah, hope you guys are enjoying Gravity Sketch and you enjoyed this video and it helped you out. But yep, that's it. Thanks everyone. I'll see you guys next week.